Que pasa, Bears fans, and welcome to the CHGO Bears Podcast. As always, CHGO Bears preseason coverage on the CHGO Bears Podcast is presented by Ray Chevrolet. Shop the Freedom to Save sales event all month long by visiting Ray Chevrolet in Fox Lake or raychevrolet.com. Serving the community since 1963. Together, let's drive. What's going on, everybody? Nicholas Moreano, Greg Braggs here for today's amazing show. Greg, we saw some interesting. Did you see that somebody infused us on an image, and that we both had the same exact reaction in the quote tweet? What the? I think it was Gritty.
Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
It was Gritty. I saw it. It's terrifying.
Yeah, somebody actually had the right response, and it was "kill it with fire." So Gritty, I see you're doing a lot of different Photoshop here lately. That's now his profile picture if you're watching here on YouTube. And Gritty, his last two. The last one was Carm dunking on me and Hoge, and now we've got this this catastrophe of
God.
It's not good. So no more of that, Gritty.
No more Gritty. We appreciate the love, though, and all the support we always see in the chat, so we do appreciate that. Before we kind of get into everything that we have scheduled for this episode today, you got to go check out the 85 podcast with Cole Kmet. I mean, he's talking with Roma Dunze and, just the rookie and everything that's led up to this point that he's at now with Adam Hoge, Cole Kmet, Roma Dunze. I mean, it's a great listen, as are the other podcasts that have already been published on the 85. So go ahead and give them a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel. You will not regret it, because there's going to be so much great content coming out throughout the entirety of the Bears season, but also what's already been out.
Yeah, and they just announced on the show that if you become a diehard, you can submit video questions or audio questions if you don't want to be on video, and yours may be selected to be answered on the 85 podcast. So just another reason, another perk to becoming a diehard here at CHGO Sports.
Hopefully they don't get too, much of crazy videos. But again, when you become a diehard, I mean, that's just a perk that you get.
We'll be vetting the videos for people like Gritty.
Sure. Submits like a infused image of Hoge and Kmet and whatever podcast is on that week. But no, it's a really great incentive to become a diehard. Not only do you get that, but all the written content from Adam Hoge, myself, and again, you have access to all the other great podcasts as well, and the content they're going to be releasing. So definitely do that if you haven't already. All right, Greg. I mean, we heard today at Halas Hall from Ryan Poles, Bears GM, Matt Eberflus, Cole Kmet. Like we heard from a lot of guys today. I just kind of want to start with, let's start from the bottom. The guy who spoke last in Ryan Poles, and just what he had to say, in his press conference, but spoke to the media for about 14 minutes after today's practice. You got a chance to listen there, Greg, and we're kind of behind the scenes, making some cool graphics here. What kind of stood out to you from what Ryan Poles had to say, and just some of your top takeaways from his presser?
Well, I think my biggest takeaway after listening back through it a second time, the thing that stood out to me the most, that got me the most excited, was when he said they're still in phase 2. He called it the second phase of building this roster. And I think a lot of fans that are level-headed and aren't thinking about playoff aspirations and Super Bowls before week 1 even starts are like, well, yeah, of course. But I just think in general, yes, we know this is still a process and they still have many years to go where they can add to this roster that already looks impressive. But Ryan Poles said this is the deepest O-line he's ever had. He loves where the wide receiver room is, obviously. I think everybody's enjoying what they're seeing from Caleb Williams so far in his early development. And then to say that they're still only in the second phase of building this roster, that for me as a Bears fan gets me so excited of all the great things to come here for this organization. And if they can get out to a fast start, not only in this season, but in this era of the Caleb Williams era, it's an exciting time right now. And I'm excited to see what phase 3 and 4 looks like, because right now phase 2 looks as good of a team and a roster assembly that I've seen as a Bears fan, maybe in my entire life.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And, again, all that stuff that's only in phase 2, what else is there for Ryan Poles to kind of continue doing with this roster? And, you speak of fast starts, forgot to mention TJ Edwards also spoke. He talked about that too, how important that is for this team. Obviously, we know the 2023 Bears started 0-4 and did not put themselves in an advantageous situation. But when I'm thinking of what some of the top takeaways I heard from Ryan Poles, I like the question that he was asked about the expectations for Caleb Williams and how he phrased there, what he mentioned in there was like, lean on the guys that, I've basically put around you for your rookie season. And we've talked about the weapons that he has in his rookie year, from the wide receivers to the tight ends to the running back group. And then that offensive line that he believes is the deepest depth he's had since he's been the GM of the Bears. So leaning on them. And then when it's right, when its time is right, do those special things that he knows he can do. And he's got to find that balance though.
Yep.
And I liked it how he phrased that way because, again, there's not a lot of number one overall picks that are ever going to run into the situation that Caleb Williams is in right now, being on a roster that is so to speak, stacked with a lot of talent. So I really like that answer from Ryan Poles and just not putting like an expectation like, oh, he's got to throw for this many yards or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Lean on these weapons. And then when it's time to go be special, do your thing.
Right. So that, it's interesting if that's exactly how they're going to play it, because Eberflus, and we'll talk about him later in the show, he also kind of mentioned this, like, hey, let your special players go be special, set them up, play point guard, Poles echoes those sentiments. And then when the clutch moments come, then you're going to have to make a play and be special yourself. And it's interesting. Is that exactly how they're going to play it here week one? I'm very interested to see that, because I think everybody right now is like trying to be mature and responsible with Caleb Williams, this new fancy toy that the Bears have. And we're going to run the ball and we're going to lean on Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, and DJ Moore and do little, because Eberflus talked about play calling, and set him up on easy throws. And that all makes sense, right? But the defense gets paid too. And so then when the bullets start flying and you got this guy that can make plays, I don't know. Are they bait and switching because they know this dude can rip it? Or is it really going to be this methodical approach where they kind of slow play his development up to what his fullest capability he can be as a rookie? So it's exciting. I'm excited to see it here 11 days away. But Nick, going back to that offensive line comment, the deepest room he's ever seen. Now we go into training camp. The biggest questions, when we did our position group rankings before training camp started, me, you, and Adam all had offensive line and defensive line at the bottom of like the 12 different groups we listed. And that spoke to what we thought, the lack of depth in the trenches. Now, clearly, them trying to acquire Matthew Judon and the different defensive line moves they've made here in the last week speaks to, he sees that they still need work on the D-line, but the O-line, to call it the deepest room he's been around, that's interesting. He talked about, Braxton Jones has gotten better. Tevin Jenkins is playing the best ball of his life. I'm encouraged by his evaluation of that. I definitely think we all agree Tevin's on another level. Adam, Hoge said that he was his offensive MVP at training camp. So I think we're seeing it there. But then Braxton, it's always kind of a question, like, how's he going to be outside of just being dependable? And Ryan Poles thinks he's getting better. So that's really encouraging. And then when you talk about the depth, Matt Pryor really showing out in that Bills game and some different options and versatility on the interior of the offensive line. It's really interesting. It's really interesting that that's how he framed what he thinks of this offensive line group.
Yeah, and and look, he didn't sugarcoat his. I think Brad Biggs asked him, "What can this group do?" And he said, "Poles said this group can be special." Those were his words that he used when describing the offensive line. And when he was mentioning some of the players and kind of putting attributes to them, immediately for Nate Davis, he also mentioned like having dependability, because obviously he has been inconsistent with being on the practice field. So it's good to, that Poles wasn't afraid to put that out there, right? You put the dependability out there because that's what Nate Davis needs to show. But, that depth was kind of tested in today's practice there, Braggs, because when we were looking at some of the guys that were lining up, you didn't have Ryan Bates was at practice participating in individual drills, but wasn't actually in the team drills. Tevin Jenkins was actually not participating in the team drills. He was off the side, had looked like a compression sleeve on his left leg. So the Bears got really interesting when it came to filling guys at the left guard position. You had Matt Pryor. He was at left guard at certain reps. He was at right guard when Nate Davis would take a few reps off. You would have then, man, I was like looking, is that a defensive player playing offensive line? It wasn't with the first team, but you had Deshaun Mallory, who still was playing defense, fill in at left guard with the second team unit. And then on the very next play went on the defensive line. So that depth was tested. Bill Murray had to leave practice at some point too. So you need to see those guys get healthy, but it is encouraging that Ryan Poles still looks at the unit as a whole, the 10 guys that they kept, and sees them still as a strength and obviously a unit that he likes moving into this 2024 season.
Yeah, no question about it. It's exciting. He pushed back when he was asked, like, well, you didn't really invest in the offensive line, and he pushed back on that. So he's standing 10 toes down for that offensive line group. And, I watched Ian Cunningham, with Ari Melrov, I believe is that how it's pronounced? He did an interview here. It was like 40 minutes long where Ian Cunningham really talked about his journey through the Ravens organization and learning from some of the best GMs in the league and making his way to, with Ryan Poles here, and he having an offensive line background himself, and that they feel like that's a real advantage for them. And so they clearly think they're going to outsmart the rest of the teams in the league and find these diamonds in the rough and find, Braxton Jones and find some different guys and have Tevin Jenkins move to guard and Kieran Amagaji. But then, yes, you get Darnell Wright last year with a top 10 pick. So that's not finding a diamond in the rough. That is the diamond. So, it's interesting to see that offensive line group take shape. And I've said it before on this show. If you go back and watch the tape from last year and watch Tevin Jenkins not be in the starting five for the first 4 weeks, and then as soon as he comes back, look at how much the pocket opens up for Justin Fields and Tyson Bagent. It was night and day. And so to me, Tevin Jenkins is the key to this entire thing because he brings a toughness, a mentality, a nastiness that the rest of that offensive line group, I think, needs, a leadership that offensive line group needs. And, Ryan Poles is talking him up, saying he's playing the best ball of his career. He's due for a payday here. There was many times, at training camp where he would get banged up on a play and you'd think he'd come off and be out for the rest of the day. And he stayed in there. He made sure he stood in there. So I think he's making a point like, hey, you're going to have to pull me, you're going to have to kill me to pull me off this line this year. Cause I'm getting mine. And we're all rooting for Tevin Jenkins.
Yeah. And before we go to ad break real quick, I just want to mention too, like, when he was Poles was asked about the leadership of Caleb Williams, I really liked his answer saying how natural it felt. And he kind of described it too. We've all been on sports teams where someone implants themselves as a leader and it's just not natural. He said that is furthest from the truth when actually describing Caleb Williams. Very natural when he comes across being a leader and how he kind of just describe or how he kind of, interacts with his teammates. It's not forced by any means. And that just echoes everything that we have heard about Caleb Williams, how he kind of approaches himself, has just a persona that he has. So that's why he's able to kind of command the locker room the way he has.
Yeah, it's natural, right? That's, I think, one of the words he used. Yep. And so he's not over asserting himself as the vocal leader yet. But I think he's showing it with his presence. And then the other thing that he brought up with Caleb that I agree with is what we've seen on tape, what we watched on TV at USC is translating here at the NFL level so far from the preseason and training camp. And Ryan said, when I'm evaluating talent and we get to camp and it's showing that it's meeting my expectations or even exceeding them, that gets me excited. And he said, not only Caleb, but everybody he drafted has done that thus far. So Ryan Poles, I will continue to, bang the table to build a statue for this guy sooner rather than later.
Yeah, plenty to talk about, and we'll continue this discussion after I tell everybody about Ray Chevrolet, and you can secure the new Wright Chevy at right price for you. That's because their new car clearance event is going on all month long, and you can shop their huge selection of new Chevy models now at new low prices. You can visit our partner this August at their location on Route 12 in Fox Lake or at raychevrolet.com. As one of the top-selling Chevy dealers in the Midwest, you'll always be able to shop one of Chicagoland's largest Chevy inventories right now. Get 0% financing, make 0% zero payments until 2025. Put $0 down and find zero hidden fees on all new Chevrolet models. Or cruise into August your own way and shop over 125 of their vehicles priced under $20,000. And if you've heard of Ray Chevrolet, then you've also heard of Ray's Price. Promise they guarantee to make your next vehicle more affordable than ever with no price changing, no add-ons, and no hidden fees ever. That means the incredible prices we're talking about right now, you can expect to see the very same when you shop Ray Chevrolet in store or online. Shop the new car clearance event all month long by visiting Ray Chevrolet in Fox Lake or raychevrolet.com. They have been serving the community since 1963. Together, let's drive.
That's right. Want to give a shout out to our guys over at Circa Sportsbook. Circa's been with us here all summer long with our Friday 120 clubs. We got one coming up next week against the Yankees, a complete takeover of the bleachers and post-game show at Almost Home. So shout out to Circa Sportsbook because they got the best tight money line splits, low hold model. Games strive to be a -110 split on the Circa Sports menu, unlike other sports books, which may use a -115 or -120 split. Circa Sports keeps as little money as possible on large market bets. They're very transparent. Circa Sports does not limit players based on their winnings. Every player has the same limits, unlike other books who do limit winning players. So I encourage you guys to download and explore all the different sports betting apps. Go see for yourself. Nobody does it better than Circa Sportsbook. Go and compare those lines, and you'll find out once and for all. Circa Sportsbook, their customer service is second to none. Real people behind the Circa Sports brand who resolve issues in a timely fashion, unlike the other books who use those chat bots that are annoying. So all aspects of the app are being run by the same team that runs the main Circa Sportsbook at Circa Resort and Casino in Las Vegas. So download the Circa Sports Illinois app at circasports.com/Illinois-app to sign up today. Also be on the lookout for Circa events, watch parties, and tailgates. Like I said, the Friday 120 club starting to get down to the end of the season, but the Cubs are getting hot. If you or someone you may know has a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER, text GAMB to 833-234, or visit areyoureallywinning.com.
Check them out. Chevy, Circa, they're all great. And you know who's also great? Our guy, Adam Hoge, who's joining us right now. Adam, what's going on, man?
What's up, guys? Yeah. Thank you for having me on the program. Really appreciate it. Yeah. No, I appreciate it. Can I real quick before we start, and I do have some thoughts on Ryan Poles' press conferences. I just want to give Steven a quick shout out. I mean, I think anybody who watches the show understands that pretty much everybody affiliated with the show is a grinder and grinding away, especially for the last month or so since training camp started. But Steven is especially the last few days. I mean, between the 85 and this show, 2 episodes yesterday, up all night editing, all that stuff. I just want to make sure that our entire CHGO community understands that the work Steven Nicholas has been doing behind the scenes, because it's been a lot and it's appreciated.
Yeah,
appreciate that, Hoge. But I got to say, like, obviously it's been a lot of work, but Bragg's helped me out. He just learned how to do YouTube shorts. I would not have been able to do the 85 if he wasn't doing those for me. So it's a full team effort.
This is what we do.
Obviously doing 3 shows yesterday. I mean, it's why what we're doing is working. So yeah, thanks to everyone.
Hell yeah.
At least for one more week, one more Hard Knocks episode, and then we're never doing 3 shows on the same day ever again.
Unless there's breaking news or something crazy happens. Yeah. But we'll be equipped to do that. But Adam, you said you wanted to give your thoughts on Ryan Poles and what he had to say. What are you thinking about?
Well, did you guys bring up Keenan Allen yet?
We did not.
I do not want to like sound off alarm bells, but I didn't. There was a conversation about that earlier today, by the way.
Yeah, that's right. We all knew I was going to be the first to mess that up.
Yeah. Okay, it was such a weird answer. Keenan Allen not practicing. I think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to play week 1. Like, so no concern there, but that doesn't mean I have to love what was said today. So Ryan Poles said, and this is the direct quote, he had last week like a cleat issue, some discomfort in his foot, but he should be fine. Now, I just want people to understand that Keenan Allen last year was dealing with a foot issue. And it's his own words where he said, had they been playing for more at the end of the season, he probably could have, fought through it and played. Like if they were in the playoffs, he would have been playing and all that.
Right.
So I don't know, just to start week one, hearing foot issue, I just don't think is ideal. I also think it's something he will grind through and play through and be fine probably. But, at his age, this has been the theme of what we've been talking about with Keenan Allen. And so, yeah.
Well, I mean, and they asked him, like, do you think Kevin Byard will play week one? And he said, yes. And then they asked him, will anybody on the roster not make it for week one? And he said, we'll have to see. So it wasn't the same adamance. Now you're talking about 52 other players as opposed to just being direct about one.
Yeah, I don't think that applied to Keenan as much as it might apply to Zach Pickens, might apply to Ryan Bates. And Flus got asked that same line of questioning earlier and sort of said yes, like everybody should be good. And it was one of those things where I'm like, I'm not sure I fully buy that. So, hey, this is why injury reports exist. And we'll know next Wednesday when that injury report a week from today comes out, who's dealing with what and if they're practicing or not practicing.
Yeah, and hopefully that bike squad gets a little lower in the numbers. There were still a few guys that were, riding the bikes, becoming a part of the cycling club. So hopefully that number does kind of get a little lower as, we get to that Wednesday where we finally get to know some of those injuries. What else, Adam, when you think about Ryan Poles or even Matt Eberflus, or obviously we heard TJ Edwards and Cole Kmet speak today as well.
Yeah. I thought his comments on Matt Eberflus were very interesting. I think this has been an really important offseason for Matt Eberflus. I'm not sure anyone, quite frankly, has won this offseason as much as Flus has, except maybe Ryan Poles, because Ryan Poles has certainly made everyone very happy with the acquisitions he's made. But, I just think fans have had to take a leap of faith, right, with Flus. We've known from the start how much Poles believes in this guy. And even in January of last year, when there's that 48-hour deliberation, I think we all thought Flus was coming back, but it wasn't a slam dunk there for a couple days. And I still think there was somewhat of a leap of faith that was given even within the organization that was like, okay, this is your guy. We'll let you see it out. But I do think it's important that we saw results. And I think this offseason has been really impressive for Flus. And, as you see what Poles said today, I think his resilience for where our roster was and for how far we knew it had to go to set a standard and hold everybody to that is extremely difficult. We see impatience in the NFL across all sports, but in the NFL a lot, where when you're going to tear something down, it's not just about the guys you bring in to play football for you. It's about the culture you set and the standards you set. And if you're going to hit the reset button on the coach 2 years in, and this is why when we were having these discussions back in January, I understood where the criticism was coming from. I just thought it was a terrible idea to reset everything because it would have just set everything back for at least one more year. So I think most people are starting to see these results, understand where Flus is coming from, where this hits principle can take you. All that being said, we haven't had a single regular season game played yet. So let's see. I'm still very, very interested to see what happens the first time this team faces adversity. It's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to be next week. I don't know if it's going to be in October. But it's the NFL and something's going to happen. And how these guys respond to that will really be the test of everything we're talking about here with the head coach.
And you know what, obviously he highlighted that as a positive. They went through those tough times so that, when the winning does come, it'll be that much better because they went through those tough times. And TJ Edwards was also asked about a very similar question, going through those fourth quarter losses, does that pay off? And well, at the beginning of this offseason, we saw the Bears practicing those 2-minute drills, how to kind of go about them to be on the winning side of those things. So you have to experience that failure like the Bears did last season to hopefully put you in a better position when you have a better roster, more equipped to, handle those fourth quarter close games to come out on the other side of it. So I liked how he phrased that and using that negative as a positive. But again, we need to see that play out on Sundays when this regular season is actually playing out.
Yeah,
I've got
100%.
a few more. Yeah, I've got a few more thoughts on Flus, but I'm going to save it because I'm pretty sure you probably got a few more thoughts on what you heard today.
Yeah, I think too. I don't know that we ever have a Ryan Poles press conference where someone doesn't bring up Patrick Mahomes. I always find that interesting. But yeah, he did acknowledge there's a lot of comparisons out there between Caleb and Patrick. I just thought it was an interesting quote when he was talking about with Patrick. He said, when the pressure went up, he was calm. And then when it was time to do something special, he was able to do it and connect. I also think we probably don't talk about it enough. He really gave opportunities for special players to be special. I think that's what took it over the edge. And I think when you hear what also Flus said, I think that was today, I'm losing track of days, where he was like, on early downs, we really need Caleb to be a point guard.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
He can go out and be a hero when they need him to be a hero. And that's kind of the Patrick Mahomes playbook. Like Mahomes has all these unbelievable plays on third downs, fourth downs. Like when he needs to step up and do something Superman-esque, he does it. But almost lost in all that is on early downs, he's just distributing the ball. He's getting it into Travis Kelce's hands. Whoever his weapons are, and maybe the last couple of years because he doesn't have Tyreek Hill anymore, he's had to do a little bit more Superman stuff. But with what Caleb has right now, this is what we're talking about. So this doesn't all need to be on Caleb's shoulders. There's going to be certain points of the game where, yeah, he's going to have to go be Superman. We've already seen that a couple times in the preseason. But ideally, with DeAndre Swift, who we've barely even seen in the preseason, and, to be able to set the tone, run the ball, which I think this offensive line is going to be able to do, and then get it to these weapons that you have. And it honestly should take the pressure off of Rome Odunze too, that he doesn't have to go be the number one guy at the wide receiver position at the same time. If Caleb can do all that, I think the Superman stuff, we all know that exists. Like, it's going to happen. But the real test is, can he just operate this offense and kind of matriculate the ball down the field, just being the point guard for 90% of the time would be great.
And Greg and I, we were talking about that in the beginning here. And I think that's a good formula too, to get things kind of established. Again, he is still a rookie, a number one overall pick, but it's a good formula when you have all these weapons and he can put on the superhero cape at any point. Like, that's the thing. He can do that. But when you have the receivers, the weapons that you have, it doesn't need to be all the time. But again, he was drafted at number one overall for a reason, because he has those special attributes. So yeah, it's a good formula, I think.
Yeah. And like I was telling Nick, like, I'm still curious if this is a bit of a bait and switch. I said that on our last show. Like, you guys know I always get ahead of my skis, but also you talk about Kansas City's offense, but what does Shane Waldron's offense do? And they attacked on first and second down more times than not. And they had the 3 wide receivers in Seattle. So obviously this is a rookie quarterback as opposed to Geno Smith, but I think he's fully capable. And I think the talent they have on the outside and in the backfield can win their one-on-ones. And so, I think one of the main verbs that Eberflus said was play calling, and so that doesn't necessarily mean screen passes, right? Mm-hmm, so It's just about getting the right matchups and making easy reads, whether those are downfield or across the middle or check downs in the flat. Game calling is going to be the key.
Yeah, I'll just point out though that layups can be downfield too.
Yep.
So if DJ Moore beats his guy, and it happens to be a 40-yard completion, that's a play you need to make in the NFL. That's still what I would consider a layup. That's still distributing the football like a point guard. It just so happens that that's your first read. He wins downfield. Boom. The other thing I would just say too before I get out of here, like I heard you guys talk about being phase 2. Like, let's not lose sight of that. I do think this is like where the Lions were last year. You want to make that jump.
Mm-hmm.
You want to make the playoffs. You'd love to win your division. That all ended up coming true for the Lions. But at the end of the day, it was still viewed as a successful season for them, even though they blew that lead. They didn't make the Super Bowl, but it was within reach. Now for phase 3, if you look at where their roster is now, they were able to fill in some of those gaps. They signed a couple of guys in free agency. Now I would say the Lions are at phase 3, and that's probably realistically where the Bears will have to be next year, but not where they are right now.
Yeah, well, we don't live in realistic island. We live on
we go.
Meatball Island here at CHGO Bears. Whether you guys like it or not, me and Gritty are taking over this ship, and I'm going to continue to pump hopes and dreams. And then when it doesn't work out, I'll blame somebody else, maybe the head coach.
Well, while we are on Meatball Island, we will let Adam go, and so you don't have to be a part of that right now. But appreciate Adam for coming on, and Greg and I will drive us home here, and we're going to do so by telling everybody about our friends at ComEd. And as you know, it's getting easier for businesses to switch to electric vehicles. That's something we can all get behind for the health of the planet and for the well-being for all of us who share it.
That's right, Nicholas. The electric grid is evolving to meet your cleaner energy needs as we all move with confidence towards an electric tomorrow. Whether you have one delivery van or a whole fleet of shipping trucks, ComEd can help guide you to make the changes that make sense.
So what should business owners do there, Gregory?
They should go to ComEd.com/clean to learn more about the resources, fleet rebates, and infrastructure incentives available to help businesses go electric. If you own a business, don't wait. Start making your plan today to switch to electric vehicles. Good for business, good for the planet, good for all of us. Go to ComEd.com/clean.
Did you say ComEd.com/clean?
That's right. Go now and see how going electric connects us to a better way of doing business and a better future for generations to come.
Go check out ComEd, and you got to go also check out FOCO. You can get fitted out in the best sports gear around: hoodies, shoes, signs, bobbleheads, and literally everything in between. It's getting a little chillier, and you're going to get those hoodies. And if you're going to any basketball or hockey games or whatever baseball games are left, you can also get fitted out for those events as well. And you could show off your love with team branded friendship bracelets. Those are cool. But whether it's jackets, beachwear, or even overalls, there's something for fans for almost every single occasion. I can see Greg Braggs wearing some overalls at a tailgate in the near future. And if you ever watch our show and you check out our awesome set, some of those set decorations, FOCO has donated a few awesome pieces for our sets. So go check them out, show them some love, and you can show us some love by checking out FOCO at FOCO.com or click the link in the description below for all non-presale items. Use the promo code CHGO10 for 10% off. All right, Greg, let's continue our conversation here because we didn't just hear from, obviously, Ryan Poles. We were mentioning some of the things from Matt Eberflus. I know you have some thoughts that you want to get off your chest here about what he had to say in his press conference. Again, we also heard from our guy, Cole Kmet, TJ Edwards in today's discussions at Halas Hall.
That's right. Make sure you're checking out the 85 with Cole Kmet here earlier this morning. They put out their episode with Rome Adunze, and that was a really fun conversation to listen to. So yeah, I guess we can get right into it just because it transitions from what Hoge just said in terms of the progress that Matt Eberflus has made over the last 6 to 8 months, and Ryan Poles citing his resiliency and citing the camaraderie of the team coming together and being intentional about having players to his house and not something that's just checking a box and, really starting to build this thing up to what it's starting to look like. That being said, and we'll get into some of the pleasantries of Matt Eberflus because I can start with those and give him a lot of credit for the adjustments he's made here this preseason. I had a lot of questions with how he would handle the preseason reps, how he would handle training camp, how he was going to handle the development of Caleb Williams. And I think right now, from my eye and my standpoint, all of those things look right. But at the end of the day, Matt Eberflus, whether it's fair or not, and Ryan Poles acknowledged that, hey, you were part of the rebuild and that was hard and you had to tough through that. He was a coach that lost 14 straight games. They started out the gates last year 0-4. They had a plan going into last year. Did they have enough to win every game last year? No. Their roster wasn't near as good as it looks right now on paper, but they could have won a few of those early season games, and they downright blew the fourth game against the Broncos. They should have, they very could have easily won week 2 against the Bucs. Losing week 1 against the Packers is always unacceptable. I don't care. Jordan Love hadn't come into his own at that point, so it wasn't like they were playing the Chiefs every week. And so that being said, you do finish the season 7-6. You start to make strides, but within that 7-6, you had moments of game management where things went wrong. And we talk about, what have we learned, from, you said TJ Edwards said, oh, well, you had to learn from losing those games late in the year and late in the game. Well, that's what I want to know is what you learned from those things. And to me, one of the things that Poles did say is like adjust and adapt when talking about Matt Eberflus. Well, I certainly hope so, because his game management at times wasn't great. On the defensive side, in situational play calls and clutch moments, it wasn't on point. And there was a few times where you could argue it cost them the game. And then he also admitted to being involved in the situational play calls on offense. And we all know the carnival circus that it was on third down for the Bears last year. They couldn't figure out what their bread and butter wanted to be. And so I still have questions for Matt Eberflus. He's checked a lot of boxes. I'm starting to come around to the idea of him, really improving as a head coach here this year. And I think he's looked good. But as you said, it all comes down to game day, Nick. And what are you going to do in those situational moments? What are you going to do in the game management? And Jason Leisure, to wrap this long thought up, said, he asked him about, did he do any self-evaluation in the offseason about his game management? And he said, not much. And then he said, he didn't really self-evaluate other than to say to get better, and that he's working with Shane Waldron on what they want to do to call plays in situational moments. Yeah, I wish I would have heard a little more transparency there. It honestly kind of sounded like a bit of an ego flex. Like, no, I didn't self-evaluate because I think what I'm doing is right. That's kind of how it sounded to me. And so I need a little more self-reflection and looking in the mirror. There was a few times last year he acknowledged that he didn't call the right plays at certain times. And that's okay to show a little bit of that humility. You're not giving up too much of the rope if you do that.
Yeah, no, those are really good points there, Braggs. And like when you come out of the gate in 2023 and get whooped by the Packers like you did, again, that falls ultimately on the head coach not having his team prepared for that game. And again, that 4-game stretch. Yes, maybe they still lose all those games, but you didn't have to lose it as bad as you did against the Kansas City Chiefs 41-10, right? So it's like there are things that he has to take fault for. And in terms of that question where he wasn't as open, look, ultimately, actions are going to speak louder than words. So even though he didn't say much right here, right now, you better go show it. And especially with this week 1 opponent again with the Tennessee Titans, which I'm as we kind of are getting closer and as the Bears are starting to now prep for that matchup, nobody should be really just marking the Bears down with a W for this game. And Eberflus is not going to do that, because if he does that, obviously you're not going to have your team set and prepared for what Tennessee can bring to Soldier Field. So I think for Matt Eberflus, the best thing for him, show it through your actions, and the best action you could show that you have learned from those mistakes, you can adjust, you can adapt, is ultimately you come out with a W in the win column each and every single week when obviously you're playing these games.
Well, and Eric Beauchamp says here in the chat, many of the flaws from game management will hopefully be fixed by the additions of Eric Washington and Shane Waldron. I think he was stretched thin as head coach and defensive coordinator, and I don't believe he believed in Getsy. And I think there's a lot of truth to that him and Getsy did not see eye to eye. And that's where I think that answer a little bit came from on his self-evaluation of game management. He's like, well, not much, because now he believes in what they're doing with Shane Waldron and everybody's on the same page. I'll also enter into this discussion the fact that they had a small margin of error last year because their roster wasn't as good as it appears to be now. And when your roster is good, you can make a few mistakes and still win games. Those little decisions may not cost you as many wins or losses on the column. So, because your roster's a little better, there might be times where some of those little decisions won't have such a glaring spotlight on them, with the idea that this roster is so good that they can make up for it in other ways. So I don't expect them to be perfect. I don't expect them to pitch a perfect game, calling every game all year long. But at the same time, that's still a huge question that he has to prove. All the offseason stuff has been great, but as you said, Nick, what you do on game day is what's going to define you as a head coach here in Chicago.
Yeah, and also too, I mean, what's going to help them, ultimately have a better season that they did last season. It's just getting to a fast start. Not only did Matt Eberflus talk about that, So did TJ Edwards. Just the importance of doing that this season, because we all know it's in week 11. You can almost say like that's when the season really gets started with all the division play happening. So you do need to have this fast start in the beginning, and you're obviously going to face the Houston Texans week 2 on a Sunday night football game, but it does start at home against the Tennessee Titans, which it out of all the opponents, one of the ones that you can envision the Bears coming out with a victory against. But again, certain steps need to be taken place in order for that to happen. I also liked when, again, kind of bringing up TJ Edwards into this conversation as well, Braggs, like the comfort. I asked him, where does he feel this defense now is better than it was a season ago when they started getting on a roll? And it's just the comfortability and the familiarity of where they are in this defense. And this is only TJ Edwards' second season with Flus, and obviously Flus's third season with the Bears. But knowing that this team, like for Edwards, he knows what the responsibilities are for the defensive lineman. He knows the guys next to him, what they're capable of doing. That should allow things to just play out faster for not guys to think, but react. And that will play, I think, more into them having bigger plays on defense. And we were just talking about Caleb Williams maybe leaning towards or leaning on the talent around him. You can also lean on this defense because they are ahead of the offense. They have been ahead of the offense since the beginning. So if you need to lean on that group, especially early on in the season, while you're kind of still figuring things out as an NFL quarterback throughout this season, you could do that, still win games. And then by the time you're at week 11 division play, not only is your defense hitting a nice stride, you offensively figure things out, know what the strengths are of your offense. For Shane Waldron too, how to utilize all these weapons effectively. That's I think a good formula for success for the 2024 Bears. And when we get on to 2025, where Caleb's more adjusted, more familiar with just the offense, then I think more so those special plays you can just kind of unleash and let him do his thing.
Well, not only the offense leaning on the defense, but the defense leaning on each other. The same way Caleb needs to lean on his talent around him, the defense needs to lean on each other, on that side of the ball individually. And that is a foundation of a cover 2 defense. We have seen this for many decades here in Chicago. And when everything's clicking on all cylinders and everybody's staying in their zones, in their gaps, that's where people start to hunt. And so the one thing I think you did see at, in the preseason and at training camp was Kyler Gordon, who I think both of us thought he was going to break out last year, the way he looked at camp. And then an injury derailed that vision. But now you're talking about in his third year, this defense, and Montez Sweat being an addition to this defensive line that wasn't here last year at training camp. Now that's given an ability for somebody like him to really shine and lean on the guys around him. And so when TJ talks about that, I believe it in a big way that they can really start to expand. Do they still need a little bit of help with the pass rush? Yes. And Ryan Poles has acknowledged that with some of the moves he's tried to make and has made here in the last week. So nobody's ducking that. But at the same time, they can still win because of this defense, and they have enough to win on that side of the ball, regardless of the fact that they probably still need a couple more pieces over there.
Yeah, to kind of speak to that point, Herb Howard came over and talked to Adam and I. And he's like, all right, let's kind of go full meatball here. How many Pro Bowlers do you think are on this team? Like, and then again, full meatball, just kind of go lean into it. And I'm like, all right, so looking at the defense, I mean, you're going to put Jalen Johnson in there. You're going to put Montez Sweat. You're going to put TJ Edwards. And now let's continue meatball. And actually, this was not even meatball, but Kyler Gordon. Do you want to throw in maybe Tremaine Edmonds too?
All the cornerbacks.
Yeah, it's like what it came down to after being, again, leaning into our meatball. It's like, so 9 of the 11.
Embrace the meatball. I like it.
Just embrace it. It almost feels like 9 of the 11. Like you're not gonna see Andrew Billings be, a Pro Bowler just because of the position, and then you're not gonna see DeMarcus Walker be a guy. But okay, let's go to the offense though. Could you see DJ Moore? Yes. Could you see a Tevin Jenkins if he stays healthy? Sure. And then DeAndre Swift brought up, and we were talking about it, like, yeah, you could see it. You could see that be a possibility. Oh, there's Keenan Allen as well. And like, there's the point being, I think, of the whole entire discussion, though, is that going back to leaning on the special talent, there's a lot of guys on this team, Greg. There's so much. The margin of error does increase a little bit. So they do have some faults in a game. Bam. Well, we still got some dudes that can still carry us in the fourth quarter. And that's ultimately why it is exciting for this squad, even though there are a lot of new pieces for the 2024 season. It does help when you just have a bunch of talent too.
Yeah. And Alex Flores, a daily viewer here of this program, says phase 2 respectfully. And I am telling you, Alex, respectfully embrace the meatball and shut the hell up.
Respectfully got to do it.
I said respectfully.
Yeah. So like, it's like, don't take offense to this. And then you say something offensive, but I said that, in the beginning, right? So now you can't take offense to it. Like that's how it works.
Yes, exactly. Well, and I know Alex
what, Greg, before I forget, there was a throw in practice today.
Oh yeah, there was a practice today.
There was a practice today where Adam was literally talking mid-sentence. He's like, "Oh," and then I'm like, "You just were talking to me." And that throw from Caleb Williams over the middle of the field to DJ Moore, guys, like full extension, hands out. The ball just stuck to his hands, and it was like, oh man, like this is gonna be fun. And then he came off to the sideline.
You said he delivered it to who?
It was DJ Moore, full extension. Kept his feet, was running over the middle of the field. The throw had velocity on it. DJ Moore, full extension, just stuck to his gloves, comes off, and Keenan he didn't practice today, Keenan Allen, but he was just hyped up. He was like, oh yeah. And I was just like, wow. We were all talking on the side, and it just immediately made us stop. And again, it's going to be fun. Like there's going to be throws over the middle of the field, and it's going to be fun.
Well, and that's the point, right? We were just talking about that. Like, what is your definition of playing point guard and giving Caleb Williams layups? And so for me, he's shown so many different throws in his ability to do those consistently, from the post routes, a skinny post, the deep post, the slants, the back shoulder fades. There's just so many different throws he makes on a consistent basis. The quick outs that he throws, with timing and rhythm and
precision.
Precision and with anticipation, which is the biggest key with a lot of these throws. And so we all get hung up on the home run stuff, but in the circus plays that we saw on full display a couple weeks ago. But man, I'm just excited for people to see what we've seen, and hopefully we get to see this translate from not just college to camp, but from camp to preseason to the regular season. All indications say that it will. That's not to say that there won't be, some bumps along the road, but I don't know, man. I just don't know, because football is about matchups. I understand he's a rookie, but you got a lot of guys out there that can win their matchups. And the other unknown we really have at this point is the kind of offense Shane Waldron's going to run. How does he come out with his first 15 to 20 plays? How does he adjust on the defense, that gets paid too? And how do you set Caleb Williams up for success in the right way? And so those are the questions that can't be answered right now. We just have to wait until week 1. But when you have the kind of talent you do on this roster that can win those matchups, then all of a sudden Shane Waldron's job of scheming guys open suddenly becomes much easier. And this guy's going to look like a genius,
He is. And Cole Kmet was asked about his teaching, and like he's just straightforward with it. People get it, so that when you're talking about those scripted plays in the beginning, everyone's going to hypothetically be on the right page, know exactly where they need to be, and know what they're doing in the offense. So when it comes to actual games, like, that hopefully he's going to put those guys in positions to succeed. And kind of going back to the point guard conversation with Caleb, NFL Network, Good Morning Football, actually, I thought it was a good comparison, maybe a little out there, but they were comparing football players to NBA players. For Caleb Williams, they had Steph Curry. And I get it. I get why they would put that as his comparison, as a guy that can not only distribute, but we all know what makes him special is his ability to shoot the basketball. It's very similar of what it made Caleb Williams special in college and how it should translate to the NFL. The passes he can make, how he can improvise, make things that are unorthodox look natural. That's what he does. But again, he has that distributing ability to get those guys, involved in the offense. And I think that is a great analogy. And obviously Caleb has to live up to that and, produce wins. And, that's also going to include championships as well, if you want to actually really get into the weeds of it. But it made sense for me seeing it like, yeah, I can't argue that. And I could see why you went there with that comparison.
Yeah. There's a few different. So when he made that throw a couple weeks ago where he's fading back to Roma Dunze and then he's like trailing backwards, about 6, 7, 8 steps.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, this is going to be a comparison. A lot of people start to light bulb off because that was the first thing I said as well. Because what does Steph do when he's hitting a half court shot? He's fading away 8 steps into the, baseline, turns around, looks at the other team or the other fans and walks the other way. He's got that touch and that feel and that charisma. So I think he's got a little bit of those vibes for sure. I even heard JT O'Sullivan say the exact same thing in his QB school breakdown. So that's going to start to, matriculate, as Adam Hoge said earlier. And so that it goes, people be like, oh, well, Steph Curry, part of one of the best dynasties in NBA history. Let's hope he lives up to that. Yeah, let's hope. But it's just about the vibe and the charisma and his ability and what he brings to the table. So he's still got a lot to live up to. And obviously this is, as somebody said in the chat earlier, this is the honeymoon phase. So we're all kind of riding the gravy train, but I see no reason why we shouldn't at this point. But, at the end of the day, we're excited for week 1 to get here and we'll find out exactly what this team is made of with money on the table time. There was a few different other comments that I wanted to get through with the Matt Eberflus stuff, Nick.
Yep.
In terms of some of the stuff he said, we talked about the fact that Kevin Byard will be ready for week 1. The other thing that I think stood out, he talks about Velus. We can get to that, but he talked about Austin Booker. And when you talk about managing expectations for Caleb Williams, Matt Eberflus certainly set the tone to manage expectations for Austin Booker and how much they're going to rely on him early. So anybody that thinks he's going to play opposite of Montez Sweat on first down to start the game against the Titans, don't expect it, because, he said they're still in the development phase with Austin Booker and they want him to keep working on playing the run and setting the edges, and they know his ability, but he's, at the end of the day, as Flus said, he's still a rookie defensive lineman and it's going to take time. So, when we talk about this team being in phase 2, where Caleb is as a quarterback right now as a rookie and where Austin Booker is as a rookie defensive end, I think that's probably the theme of the day in a lot of ways, is trying to manage these expectations, even though the evidence in front of us shows us all the reasons to be excited.
Yeah, there's plenty of reasons just because of what he showed throughout the preseason, what he's done in training camp. But there also is a reason why the Bears kept 6 defensive ends, right? Like, you have these numbers because you still need Austin Booker to develop that very important aspect of the game, setting the edge. And I think, it's hard to gain weight throughout the season. Like, that's just not what's naturally going to happen. So
I do it very easily, man. So
well, for professional athletes, it might be a little different there, Greg. But again, that's why they kept 6 guys at defensive end, and also have Jacob Martin on short-term IR designated to return too. So they're going to still try to find that right combination to play opposite of Montez Sweat. But for Austin Booker in those, third down situations and how he can just kind of get around guys in different ways. He doesn't have a set plan. It's a feel thing, which is really great for a rookie to have. That is encouraging because as this season goes on, he will progress. He will watch film with the other guys to see how to set people up. And then you can have a little bit more responsibility for him and then trust him out there a little bit more. But yeah, that's a real factor. And again, too, that also I think applies in ways to Caleb Williams, and that's why I lean on the special talent that you have. So I completely understand Eberflus' comments there. Eric Washington said some similar things too when regarding Austin Booker. Like, I know he's done a lot of things and produced in the preseason, but still, not temper expectations, but he still has a lot to learn.
Yeah, 100%. So it'll be interesting to see, what situations they try to put him in. And again, to let him lean on the talent around him so he can shine. Certainly, I think situational third downs will be definitely in his
bread and butter,
the NASCAR package, right? And sliding DeMarcus Walker inside with Jervon Dexter, Montez Sweat, and then you got Austin Booker on the edge, doing his thing. I think that could be a winning formula on situational plays for sure. I think the other part of it too is just trying to get into the rhythm of game week, talking about game prep here on Wednesdays and Thursdays, and they've been able to get into like their 7-day game week routine here the last couple of weeks, and getting those scout looks and those show team looks, right? And so you were there today. Obviously, you're not going to give away the special sauce and the secret recipe, but was there any difference at practice today from what we saw at training camp and how they're preparing compared to how they did today?
Yeah, I think the biggest notable difference, like we always heard Matt Eberflus talk about one-on-ones, first team offense playing the first team defense. You're starting to see now the first team offense play against what would be like a scout look. So they're starting that process of preparing for Tennessee and just trying to get guys acclimated to what they're going to potentially see on game days. And the defense did the exact same thing going against the number 2 unit in the offense. So that's like the biggest change that we're starting to see. And this is actually going to be our last week of being out there. Well, this will be my last day actually of watching a full practice, because once you get into the game prep, once you get into game weeks, it's like you watch 10 minutes of practice, go back in, whatever happens on that practice field stays on that practice field. We don't get to see it as the media, but that was a change that we saw today happening. You're not seeing 1-versus-1. In 7-on-7s, you saw that, but not in the team settings. It's going to be the 1s versus 2s, getting those scouted looks and seeing what the Tennessee Titans are going to bring to the table. So that would be the biggest difference that we saw in today's practice.
Yeah, 100%. So a lot of good stuff today. It was a loaded day at Halas Hall. It was a loaded day here at CHGO Bears with all the different content we put out. Make sure you're following our Twitter account, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to the 85, of course. But seriously, it's exciting. I think the only thing we really didn't touch on, if you have any final thoughts on Velus Jones, they said they can use him in multiple ways. Yep. I think we kind of understand that they see a lot in Velus, still making this roster. So it'll be interesting to see how they utilize him. But, we certainly, have seen that these coaches have a little more belief in him than maybe some of the fans do.
Yeah, in today's practice too, I mean, the versatility, he started out with the wide receivers in the individual drills, just running a couple of routes, but then by the end of practice, he was definitely in full-on running back mode. So that was a little different. I mean, we've seen him strictly, practice at running back, but in today's practice, hey, let's put you with the wide receivers for a little bit, transition you back with the running backs, put you through those drills with Chad Morton. He'll yell at you for a little bit, and then get you fully equipped to be a running back. So, man, I really appreciate Chad Morton. And I don't know if he was looking at me when he got out of a drill. He just pointed, and I'm like, is there anybody behind me? Is there a player behind me? Like, I don't know. I'll get yelled at. I don't care. That sounds cool with me. I don't just standing here, but it's again, speaking to the versatility, they're gonna utilize Velus Jones Jr. in whatever ways they see best. And I think still getting him his reps at wide receiver, but also mixing in the running back stuff. I think that's a good way for him to not forget about, the possibility of flexing him out wide, because he can do that. He's just not the greatest at it, but that does create just versatility in his game.
Well, and again, I said this on the show the other day, but I think the value that maybe some fans don't want to appreciate or undersell is the fact that teams have to account for Velus Jones if he's on the roster, if he's on the field. And Matt Eberflus talked about that, forcing teams to have to use some of their time of their game prep during the week to try to figure out, hey, when this guy's on the field, what are we going to do? And then when he gets on the field, the defense now has to account for him when he goes in motion and where he's lined up, whether he's in the backfield or if he's lined up as a wide receiver. And that versatility and that speed is going to apply pressure on the other team and the other defense to try to figure out what they want to do. And that's going to open up those other guys on the team that are very, very, very good. So I know a lot of people, have their questions about Velus Jones and have their concerns that he's going to cost them a game by putting the ball on the ground. But at the end of the day, because of what he brings to the table from a talent standpoint, he's still finding his way on this Bears roster. And at the end of the day, I think we should all be just rooting for, his development to continue to ascend now that he's not relied on to be any kind of a huge impact outside of the fifth, sixth, seventh option, eighth option on the offense.
Before we go to Super Chat, I like this comment that Chuck Fee 23 put on there. Imagine Velus being covered by a linebacker. You were talking about matchups. That's a favorable matchup for Velus Jones Jr. Just knowing the speed that he has, and again, you don't have to have the greatest route running ability to beat a linebacker that you would need to have to beat a corner or a DB. And obviously, they're very athletic linebackers in this league. But I like that comment. Again, another favorable matchup that the Bears can utilize in their offense. But yeah, let's get to some of these super chats. I know we have a couple that we been sprinkled throughout the show. We have Gritty Whispers Rick Show, and with the great image there of
that image is an abomination, Nick. Okay, he needs to cease and desist all images that he combines of me and Nick. Okay,
you said it, not me. I showed that image to my fiance last night. She's like, "What is that?" I'm like, "Is that you?" And Braggs were like, "Yes, it is." Like, why? That's great question.
Why is a great question. Why would you do this to us? Jason McKenna saying, how do I post my questions to Cole? Well, again, like I said at the start of the show, if you are a diehard, you can get a free shirt out the gate, as I always say. You get exclusive access to all the written content that we put out, Nick, Adam Hoge's weekly newsletter, lots of different things, discount on merchandise, discount on events like our tailgates, that are going to be at every home game at the corner of Wabash and Cermak. We're going to have some live shows to announce here for during the season. So keep an eye out for that. You get discounts on all that stuff. But then the other thing is we have a Discord channel where right now, if you went in our Discord channel, you would see a ton of Bears fans, diehards to CHGO Sports and CHGO Bears in there. And that's where they talk Bears all day long and stay off the crazy streets of Twitter. And they, filter all this different news in there and have conversations about all the different happenings in Bears Nation. And so you would then submit your video question or audio question in the Discord channel. You would tag, CHGO Sports or our head of content, Kevin Kadick. And then if your, question is one of the ones they choose, it will appear on the 85 with Cole Kmet and Adam Hoge. So again, we're trying to give you guys all the different incentives to make it worth your while to become a diehard, because we really appreciate when you become a diehard here on our channel, because you're supporting what we're trying to do, and that's live out our dreams to cover the Chicago Bears. And we appreciate every single one of you, joining us along on this journey. And CHGO Sports and ALLCITY Network, our umbrella of this whole thing. Big things have been happening every single month I've been here, and we continue to climb the ladder, and we're not stopping here. And it's only going to be more fun if we can get the Bears to play some football and win some games.
Let's go. I love it. We have football CF Candy $4.99. Why have there been no defensive coverage questions for Flus? You can't play predictable, bland cover 2, no blitz, especially against the Titans week 1. Well, here we've seen Eberflus kind of, amp up the blitzing in this preseason, the training camp practices. And there will be defensive questions. I assure you that, football CF Candy. So this wasn't the press conference for it, but I'll make sure to definitely ask him something in the next coming days, especially next week. So don't you worry. We also have Concerned Citizen $4.99. It's the Bears year. My wedding is Saturday, and then honeymoon is during the bye week. Scheduled a year ago, Super Bowl bound. One, congratulations. That is super exciting. Hopefully this is the year that we can all be proud of the Chicago Bears. Yeah,
that's fate. That's fate. I mean, you got ahead of the season with the wedding scheduling. Maybe you were smart enough to know that it was going to be the week before. Good on you. But to have your honeymoon during the bye week scheduled a year ago, that's fate. That's the football gods looking out for you. So congratulations to you on your wedding. Have fun on your honeymoon. Make sure you bring me back something nice. Yeah. Football CF candy, $1.99, pounds sterling, dollars, Canadian cents. The Titans defense looks monstrous. I'm worried. And I get it. I was kind of going back and forth with a guy on Twitter today about whether we can't we're not taking the Titans for granted by any means. I don't think anybody is, but it is going to be interesting to see how they match up with Tennessee when we get to that day. So I'm not underestimating them. I don't think the Bears are by any means, but we're just going to have to wait and see. I like the matchup. I don't think that I think this is a winnable game for the Bears, but yeah, their defense should not be underlooked. They've had a bunch of additions here this offseason, and they just made an addition from the linebacker from the Rams who can make some plays too, right?
Knows how to blitz. Yeah.
Right. So they're going to be coming for Caleb Williams, because to me, trying to figure out how you beat Caleb Williams at this point, without really knowing how he's going to adjust to the preseason or to the regular season, I just think they're going to be blitzing him like crazy to test his mental composure and his poise.
And test the Bears' offensive line too. Let's see what that unit, it's supposed to be a special group according to polls. We'll see when they start bringing extra guys. So it's gonna be a tough matchup, no doubt. Chubbs 82 with a $10 super chat. Glad to see Greg taking a break from endlessly talking about himself on.
You know what, Chubbs is my friend, so he says this in jest. But you know what, Chubbs, the
Look
best
the camera, Greg.
The best promoter for you is always going to be you. And Adam Hoge said it the other day. Yes, I am my biggest fan, and that's not going to change. I have a lot of humility, and I also am probably the biggest egotistical jackass you'll ever meet. So it works hand in hand, and you will continue to hear me celebrating my wins every single day, especially when I have this damn broken leg that I have to deal with. So I am, going to continue to be happy. And again, shout out. I just passed 25,000 followers on Twitter. Most people think Twitter is a cesspool, and they might not be wrong. But if it wasn't for Twitter, I wouldn't be sitting here with a full-time job covering the Chicago Bears. So I'm very grateful for Bears Twitter. I'm very grateful for all of you in the chat. And I'm also very grateful for greatness. So I just can't help myself. Chubbs 82 also adds in $2 super chat. 20-0, Bear down.
Ooh, I like it, Chubbs. Lean into it. Chubbs with a third super chat. $10 again. I'm marking it down as a W. Zero chance I ever think we're going to lose. We lost a lot of games because Justin Fields is a bust. His stats are horrendous, and his tape continued with the Steelers. Chubbs, putting it out there.
Chubbs spending $10 to be mean to Justin Fields. Very nice of you.
Who will not be the starter. Mike Tomlin announced that will be Russell Wilson's job for the start of the season. Hopefully that doesn't last too long, because the Bears can still get that fourth round pick instead of a 6 if he plays, obviously, the 51% of the snaps. Matthew Atkinson, $4.99, 22 Pro Bowlers on this squad. Bears make it 20. I mean, 23 is, I like 23 is a better number, so maybe just amp it up one more. Let's do it. Gritty with a $20 super chat. Great show tonight, guys. I peeked in Photoshop with the masterpiece, so I am now retired. However, new favorite CHGO trio, Steven, Nick, and Bragsy. Goat. Hashtag Brick Show.
Where's Steven at? Go, Steven.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gritty.
He just wants the show to end so he can go back to living his life for 5 minutes. So we'll end the show, but we're always going to give Steven
we got one more, though. I'll read this one.
All right.
It's $4.99 from Jeff. Coming to Chicago for the first time next weekend for week one. What's the best pizza spot in River North?
Anybody know?
What's the answer, Steven?
River North?
If there's the Salerno's in River North, that's the answer.
Okay. Salerno's, can you still say, CHGO and get half off your order? I don't know if that deal's still going on. If it is, then you're definitely hitting up Salerno's. I'm also partial to Aurelio's over there by the stadium. It's kind of near the stadium where our old tailgate lot used to be.
I've been to Pisano's there. Guy Finley put in the chat. Good pizza there too as well. But there's so many. There's a lot of options. That's the thing. Plenty of options. Can you go wrong? I guess if you pick the wrong spot, but so many good options.
We got a lot of good pizza.
A lot of good pizza. My final thought of the day is
all right. Here we go.
I'm noticing that I am doing this. Players and coaches are doing this. The media, I heard Dan Wiederer say it 3 times in one sentence today. I am hearing everyone say the phrase in terms of
I knew you were going to say this.
ad nauseum. It is driving me insane. A few times today, I almost said it, and it's driving me crazy so much that I used a different phrase while I was talking because it's literally pissing me off when it comes out of my own mouth. And everybody's saying it. I don't know why all of a sudden I've noticed this, but literally everybody is saying this phrase. I don't know if this is something that's always been going on and I'm just noticing, but I'm losing my mind over this officially. And I know some people have pointed out that I always say at the end of the day, I probably do.
Well, I actually got one more for you that I noticed during this episode. You were saying a lot of. You say 100% a lot.
100%.
100%.
So like I am losing my mind about this. And I know we all kind of have our ticks, when we're talking and we kind of go to those to kind of get to our next thought. And so like this in terms of thing is like the mature transition to your next thought. But I can't take it anymore. I cannot take it.
Would you rather it be is there anything that you'd rather it be than in terms of, or just don't use that?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, but I can't do it anymore. I just cannot listen to this crap. So I don't know what we're going to do about this, but we're going to figure it out. So that's my final thought of the day.
All right. Well,
it's a stupid final thought.
I was going to try to use it in a way that wrapped up the show, but I won't because I don't want to piss off Braggs because I think we had a great show to end off this. Everything that happened on Wednesday was a lot of newsy stuff from all the press conferences. Obviously, we also had Adam Hoge join in for a little bit. But look, everybody, before you head out and go do whatever you're going to do with the rest of your Wednesday, please like and subscribe this podcast so then you get, again, you'll be notified whenever we go live. There's going to be breaking news podcasts probably throughout this season for whatever content there is. So definitely like and subscribe. Do the same exact thing for the 85 with Cole Kmet. Again, he just had Roman Dunze on the last podcast. And if you're a diehard, you can submit those video questions that may be played on the next time that podcast airs. So go like and subscribe to that as well. And give us all a follow us on our social media accounts, CHGO _Bears on Twitter. Braggs is already at 25,000. I'm at 21,000. We got to keep that growing up.
We're trying to get CHGO Bears to 45,000 here. We're maybe an end of season goal to get it to 50,000. So
let's go.
Hey, all that stuff is trivial at the end of the day. But it is helpful for the growth of what we're all trying to do as a company and in our own personal lives as well. So we appreciate all your support. Tomorrow, I'll be in the chair with Herb Howard at 12 p.m. Central. We're going to be back to our 12 p.m. Central slot here going forward tomorrow and Friday, the return of Mark Carman on Friday. And then next week, obviously everybody's off on Monday, but then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, back in our 12 p.m. game week, back in our 12 p.m. slot. But tomorrow I'll be in with Herb Howard. Adam Hoge will be at Halas Hall, and we're going to have special guest Tevin Jenkins, who breaks down quarterbacks, coming on at 12 p.m. Central tomorrow. So you guys can jump in, hear his insights on what he's seen from Caleb Williams through the tape, and maybe try to get some insights from him of what he's seen from Shane Waldron's offense now that he's with the Bears and what we can expect from, the totality of Shane Waldron's coaching career and what we can expect here in Chicago. So should be a fun show tomorrow, and it's going to be a great ride this season.
Love it. We got you covered. So again, make sure you like and subscribe, but we're going to end this show. We'll see you tomorrow. Until next time, adios, Bears fans.
We all silly like the mayor.